All right, so moving on, let's go continue. Moving on, let's go ahead and see if we can continue and add the tip row here. So we know that this is going to be a row because we have tip text, and then we have to the right here on the same line really 33, which is going to be the tip amount. It's going to be calculated as we slide left and down the slider there. Okay, so this is going to be a row just like what we had at the top, split, which is this here. And also because we're still testing things, you notice we have this if statement there, right, to see if the state of our form, or in this case our text field, is valid, right? So what I can do, let's see here, go back to our right. So since we're still working on debugging and we're still working on our user interface, this validate here, it's a little bit over the top, which means we can actually get rid of this if statement for now. So I'm just going to go ahead and put forward slashes there. In fact, let's start from the bottom so we know exactly where this ends. So click here, the end of this curly brace, and let's see where that ends, this else statement there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And let's go ahead and also do that. So let's go and run real quick. So what this will do, it won't look at the validate state because we're just testing things out. So we want to be able to see right away when we run, see how our user interface is coming. Okay, so now every time we're just going to see everything there. Okay, let's go back to our code. So what we want to do again, we want to put this structure here, which is this tip, and add the number that will go for our tip amount. Okay, so let's see, this row ends right about there. Okay, so right about there, I'm just going to say tip row. I'm going to say row. I'm going to add a modifier real quick here. Put a new line. And I'm going to put a padding. And for now, let's say, so we have our row, and let's go ahead and start. First of all, I'm going to put a text. That will say text like this. And pass it a modifier. And I'm going to align this text, use alignment. The alignment first. We want this to be center vertically, I should say. Okay, that's good. And then what we want to do, because it's in a row, we want to give some sort of space, right? This space here. And so right after this text, I'm going to add a spacer. Say modifier, give it a width of about 200 dp. And then I'm going to add another text, which is going to be this. And for now, let's just put 33 like that. And we want the same thing to happen. We'll pass this modifier here. Should be good. Okay, let's see. Now our split. It's refreshing. Okay, so we can see. And there we go. Let's see. It looks really nice. Looks, says text there. That's not what we want. Go back to code, just make sure it's. I put text. This should be tip. Okay. All right, there we go. It looks good. Now let's go ahead and give some space or some padding around this entire row, because at this point, this is not looking good. And I'm going to give you more space, and our emulator can be in the background, so we have more space there. Okay. If we need it, we'll call it. So inside of our row here, we haven't passed anything as arguments. Let's change that. First one, we're going to say modifier. pass our modifier here because we want to change a few things. So it's a modifier. Let's use padding, and I want to say horizontal padding, just a general horizontal padding, and let's give about 3 dp. And let's give another padding here. Let's give vertical padding of about 12 dp. Okay. So refresh. Okay, looks much better. You can see just little differences, but all right, we can keep tweaking everything, but at this point that's fine. Let's continue. Okay, so we are done with this row, tip row. Let's go ahead and add this another row here, which is going to contain the actual percentage in this case of, which is going to contain the percentage, which is going to contain the tip percentage that the user is wanting to give. Now, looking at the structure here, remember these two, so we have the slider and we have the text, they should go together. If that's the case, then we don't need a row here. We need another column because it's going to be top to bottom. So let's go ahead and do that. Back to our code. Right where we finish that row, right here, let's go ahead and say column. And let's just say vertical alignment or arrangement, that is. I'm going to say arrangement is going to be center. I want everything inside of this to be in the middle. And give it horizontal alignment. And I want this to be centered horizontally. Okay, setting up everything. And so inside of our column here, first of all, I'm going to add a text, because if you look, we need this text here. Very simple, the process. I'm hoping you feel this way as well. And for the text here, it's just going to be, again, say, so far I'm going to say 33%. Okay, and then here is where we're going to put a spacer, because we also want to give some space between the percentage and our slider. So you can see the theme is always the same. Oh, you can see we follow the same theme here. So width of, actually I need a height. So modifier, I want the height in this case, right, of about 14.dp. You can play with that, but that's fine. So here is where we put our slider. Okay, this structure here. To create a slider, it's very simple. There's one out of the box that we can do. So I'm going to say slider. There we go. Make sure we get this first slider here. You can see it's Android X Compose Material. That's exactly what we're looking for. Hit enter. And you can see also that the same things happened when we were trying to put together, when we were putting together the field, text field, right? Because the slider, you know, as you slide left and right, it has to consume certain values, and we have to also get the on value change, because we change any values as we slide left and right. So that is what we need to take a look at. That is what we need to get. So in this case here, I'm going to just say slider position. So it's going to be a state which we haven't created yet. And then for on change, on value change, that is, this is going to be a lambda that we're going to pass. I'm going to say new val as such. All right, so we're going to do some work here in a second. Now, so for our slider position state here, what do we need to do? I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go at the top of our function here, and we're going to create another state. Okay, so I'm going to say val. I could use by delegate, or I can use what we have been doing, which say is equal to remember. And then I'm going to say mutable state. And for each value, and the type that we're going to pass here is going to be a float. Let's say 0, f as such, to say that this slider here, I think I have one too many. Move that. There we go. So to say again that our slider position stays, as I was saying, our slider position here will take a state, obviously, and the state's values, multiple state values, are going to be, they will be floats. As we move left or right, this state is going to be the value, of course, the state value is going to be a float. We have a problem here because we actually are wrapping the slider position with mutable state. That means we have to get the value, so that value as such. So once you do that, then you see that we run out of that issue. Here on values change, we have this parameter that we're passing, and we have instead of our lambda, so we can use that. So for now, I'm going to say log d because we want to see those values changing. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing values changing, because that just means things are working. All right, let's just pass that along there, and this is going to be slider as such. You can use any tag you want. Let's go ahead and actually run this and see on the emulator, or in this case on my actual device, my real device, and see if this is actually going to work. Let's open logcat, slider as such. All right, this is very exciting. You can see there is a slider there, and if you can start sliding, and you can see the values are changing, and they are all float values. Okay, that's very good. But what we need to do also, notice as you try to change, nothing really, the slider doesn't really slide, although the values are changing, but we don't see that thing happening, the slider changing. The reason why is because, well, we have the value, but we are not doing much with it. So what we want to do really is to set, say, slider position value, or state in this case, that value, we're going to set that to our new value. That makes sense because that's what we're doing. We start from 0 in the beginning, and as we slide, as we change the value, we want to update our slider position state, the actual value. All right, so that's what we need to do to for us to see the physical change instead of just the internal change of this new value here. Okay, now we can see, voila. And at the bottom, you can see that the values are changing. Very good. So we are making real good progress. You can see it was really easy to put together a slider, but there's some work we need to do here. For instance, we need to make sure that we don't have floats. So that means we need to multiply by a certain multiplier number to make it so that the percentages actually look as percentages. But that's easy, and we're going to do next. And you can see also the tip is looking good. Everything is starting to look pretty much like what we have here.